Hello and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk About. And today we're talking about project management, and we've got Nicole Riley. Nicole, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Nicole's got a company called Can Market, and one of the things that she deals with is project management. So Nicole, first and foremost, project management is such a broad term
Yes.
that's used. What does that actually mean to you?
To me, it's more about an approach. It's about how to help you achieve specific things. So specific goals, specific measurements of success, and in a specific time frame. It's designed to help you change your business in a controlled way, a way that doesn't endanger your business as usual while you're doing it, and to give you the best amount of success in doing that. One of the biggest challenges with doing that is obviously trying to make it all work in the constraints, so the time or the money or the resource that you're given. But that's what it means to me.
Well, yes, because I mean, my background's also in project management. So, I mean, I think you and I speak a lot of the same language at times. But, I mean, a lot of people, I think, have got this idea in their head that project management is this massive, confusing thing that takes a lot of time and resources. But it doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need to be a complicated thing.
Not at all, no. It's some of that is because we've had a huge industry spin up over the years around certification and so on. And a lot of what are complicated terms that don't get used in a day-to-day business environment, perhaps. So I'm a big fan of keeping it simple, would probably be the main thing I'd say. And if you've got someone experienced managing a project, they're going to apply just enough of those big and complicated things to make it work for your business.
Yeah, because I mean, I found obviously in project management and dealing with other people, that kind of thing, that I found that a lot of project management in any kind of project is completely neglected. And it's not so much a case of project management. No one actually sits down at the beginning and decides what end result they want. They just start and kind of hope that it's going to fall into place. And I think that's extremely dangerous. But do you think that a lot of businesses underestimate project management?
Absolutely. As you were saying some of those things, I was thinking, yes, I see those sorts of things all the time. And I think it plays back into what you said in the last question about it being perceived as complicated. Why can we not just make this happen? Back to what I was saying before in our first question was that it's designed to make you be as successful as possible. So if expecting it to just happen and to be led by people that don't have the skills and the knowledge and the experience to deal with things that inevitably are going to crop up and these things happen, is putting a lot of risk out there to your business as usual. And a lot of the conversations I have are about, well, why would you do that when there's an opportunity to have another way? And as you said, getting started rather than being very clear about what it is you want to achieve, how much money that you realistically want to spend on that, and how long you've got to achieve it. Just embarking on something that could carry on forever, when a project by its very definition is a temporary thing, it's difficult. It's difficult to understand why people would take that approach.
Also, another thing I find is that if you don't look at what you want to achieve from the project, that in itself is a problem. Because in the project management I was in, it was obviously different to what you were in. But what I found with the project management I was in was, if you did task number 1 without task number 5 in mind, it didn't suit task number 5 when you got to there. So you really have to have a look at the end of the project to establish how you want to undertake that project. And if you just
Yeah.
go, you end up on the wrong path, and then you're nowhere near where you want it to be. And I think that's a very common mistake.
It is. And I tend to think when you have that kind of conversation, it's a bit like a New Year's resolution. You come up with an idea that you want to change something about yourself in the new year. But unless you actually take some steps to sit down and plan that out, you're going to get somewhere into February when you have a big party to go to, or you get invited out for dinner, for Valentine's Day perhaps, and you've got no plan of how you're going to navigate that. So inevitably you're going to get derailed. And I think hopefully some people relate to that kind of thinking.
Well, I hope so. How do you help businesses to manage projects?
Going back to what your point was before about being very clear about what the goal is and what it is you want to achieve. Whenever I go in to talk to a customer, I get them to spend a lot of time trying to articulate why they want to make the change they want to make and what benefits they really see or think can be achieved from that. One of the things I use is a technique called SMART. Hopefully a lot of people have heard of it, but it's about being very specific, measurable, achievable and realistic goals around what you want to achieve, and then keeping that time bound, and that fits perfectly in with a project management approach.
Yes, it does. Tools. What kind of tool? What do you think? I mean, because obviously I make a lot of tools for project management, and this is how we actually first met each other. But what do you think about tools? Do you need the right tools for project management?
This one's actually going to be quite interesting from the perspective of that I've got a bit of a reputation in the project management industry of being a bit of a tools expert, project management tools expert. So what I'm going to say here is that it doesn't have to be fancy. The most effective project management tool I've ever come across is good communication. People meeting face to face, or if that's not possible, using the great solutions like this that we've got available to actually talk and reach a common understanding is the most valuable tool. A project is about more than making a schedule of tasks. If you want to make a schedule of tasks, use Excel to do that. That is absolutely fine. It's about making sure that the people that need to do those tasks understand what they are, how they fit into the bigger picture, and what they need to do if and when something goes a bit wrong.
Well, I think it's right. I mean, it comes down to understanding, and that's essentially why we use the tools, is so people can have a better understanding. What I find quite surprising, people often come to me to make tools, and they say to me, make a tool that monitors X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, well, that's fine. What do you want it to achieve? And they don't know. They just know they need a tool to monitor X, Y, and Z. They don't know what they wanted to achieve. And so often I talk to potential clients who want something and ask them, what do you want to get out of this tool? And they haven't actually thought about it. And I find that quite strange. I struggle to get my head around that, because I go, well, surely you're buying a tool to get some results out of it. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best project management tools in the world. If you're not talking to each other, you don't understand what you need to achieve, and you don't understand what you're heading for, they're going to be useless.
Yeah, it's a big thing I say about people looking to implement project management tools, is that the tool isn't going to solve problems that you already have around things like communication or bad processes. It's not going to do it for you. If anything, it's going to magnify those things that aren't already working, because the tool's not going to work as well. And your expectations around the tool doing it for you are going to be disappointed. So yeah.
And you mentioned about things going wrong. So let's just touch on that for a minute, because you probably, like me, get a lot of frantic phone calls, not at the beginning of a project or before the project, but when something goes wrong. It seems people only tend to act when they need to react when something's happened, rather than actually take the necessary precautions beforehand. I mean, do you have as much of an issue trying to convince people before the project how important it is to manage it properly before they actually start?
Yeah, I've been quite vocal before about one of the project management tools that I find the most useful, which is called a RAID log. It stands for risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. And it's a project management technique that gets you to sit down at the beginning and think about all the things that could possibly go wrong, or things that we've learned perhaps before from projects that didn't go as well as they might have done if we'd perhaps seen that problem coming, and to sit and make a very high level plan of, well, what will we do if that happens? And how much might it cost us if that happens? And how much might it cost us to fix it if that happens? And a lot of projects start off with good intentions and do that exercise, but then they file it away. And I'm a big believer in keeping that updated and keeping that reviewed. And if we get further along in the project and it looks like something's not likely to happen anymore, close it down. Make sure that owners and accountability is assigned to keep an eye on things. And that plays into your previous point about expecting project management to run as BAU. You don't get to take advantage of those really effective techniques that help you see things going wrong and have a plan to deal with them without having to firefight.
Well, my project management background is largely in kitchen installations. And I remember time and time again when you had a situation where it was a case of, we would get called into a job where someone else was working, and they bring us in and they say, what's going on here? Are these people doing a good enough job? And I'd be looking at what they were doing, and they'd say, well, like, for example, the tiler's coming tomorrow, but they haven't finished doing that because that has to be done before the tiler. And I'm saying, well, this should have been picked up months ago. If you plan it properly, you're looking at what needs to be achieved before that stage can start, so that you can make sure that's done. You should never, if you've successfully project managing, you should never get to the point where you get to the problem and you haven't foreseen it.
Absolutely.
Only very, very rare circumstances. But then, as you say, you then got a contingency plan if that goes wrong. But to actually get to a problem, then realize you've got the problem, you really should be foreseeing that ages ago, because you're already seeing, well, this stage isn't going to finish on time, so the next stage can't start on time. But again, it comes down to thinking about everything beforehand and planning it, and actually having some kind of strategy, which doesn't have to be a 7,000-page document. It just has to be some kind of plan that you've come up with.
It absolutely is. It's even a conversation between two people that says, what if this happens? What will we do about it? It can be just as simple as that.
And then obviously, as you said, when you see things are running behind, that's going to have a knock-on effect. So you can already start planning for those knock-on effects, rather than just getting there and going, oh, we're not ready.
Oh dear. Yeah. So then you've got potentially trade people sitting around not being able to do work that's then costing you money, etc., etc. Yes, you can foresee that. I think one of the things particularly that I've probably come across in my working life in project management is the culture around what can be construed as bad news. I think if there is a culture of burying potentially bad news, or not wanting to hear when something's gone red as such, that's quite counterproductive. So I'd urge businesses to realise that having early warning of potentially bad news, or as we've just said, those dependencies and those knock-on effects, that's a good conversation to have, because that gives you the opportunity to do something to get it back on track, and to probably cost you a lot less money than it will to firefight.
Exactly there. I mean, I don't want to obviously upset all the English people viewing this, but I think it is a cultural thing, because I think where I'm from in South Africa, you've got no problem telling anybody anything. Whereas here, I think there genuinely is a I don't want to give bad news thing that you just don't want to say. But at the end of the day, as you've said, I mean, think about anybody who's ever had any building renovations or anything done, and the guy says, well, we'll be finished by Wednesday, and Wednesday comes and goes, oh, we're not finished yet. They would have known they weren't going to finish by Wednesday, by the previous Friday, but they said nothing. Yeah. And actually, me personally, I'd rather get some bad news going, listen, we're not going to be finished on Wednesday because of X, Y, and Z, it's only going to be Friday, rather than wait till Wednesday expecting it to be done and then not have it done. Now, obviously, on bigger projects, the consequences could be much more severe. But as you say, I would rather hear the information as and when it happens, where you've still got time to actually make another plan.
Do something about it. Yeah, absolutely right.
So often that just doesn't happen, does it?
No. No, I think that's where a project manager can work in partnership with a business, and if you can develop a relationship of being a trusted advisor and someone who the business knows is only going to come and tell them about things they really need to pay attention to, that's key.
Yeah, you're right. What kind of projects and businesses do you get involved with?
Oh dear. It's been about 25 years all told that I've been in the world of projects. Can Market as a business primarily focuses on digital marketing and e-commerce. So we often speak to customers who either want to improve their digital marketing results around things like SEO, PPC and that kind of thing, or they want to launch a whole new website so that they can sell things online, or they want to upgrade their existing website. And one of the key things there is making sure that the current one works until such stage as you switch over to the new one. And that benefits from the project management side of things. But I've worked in industries from financial services to media and publishing to manufacturing, even oil and gas, the last one I was involved with. And most of it comes down to helping people through change.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, I've also been in various industries doing project management, and the skills are very much transferable, because it's not always about knowing the industry. It's about having the right mindset to sit down and plan things through. In fact, from the whole marketing point of view and websites and that kind of thing, I'm probably a good example of what not to do. Because when I started my business, I project managed everything into the ground. I had detailed plans for everything, but I completely underestimated marketing. In fact, I was very naive as far as marketing was concerned. I thought, create content, stick it out there, wait for the calls. It didn't quite work that way, as I'm sure you're not surprised. But actually, I mean, I've remade my website a number of times, and I'm not even an e-commerce website. I remade it a few times because my plan, my vision kept changing, because I hadn't actually sat down and thought about what I wanted to achieve. I mean, I knew in general, but I hadn't specifically thought about it. And actually, by not planning it, you can end up doing 2-3 times as much work that is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I think a lot of us learn the hard way as such, is that we know in theory how all these things are supposed to work about planning and scheduling and so on, but then we often be the first ones to not follow our own advice, and then look back, as you say, and if I'd only done it that way, which is the way I tell everyone else to do it. But that probably brings to the biggest point about projects, and particularly things that are repeatable, about not reinventing the wheel and learning lessons. from it. If we follow a project management approach, we can leverage all the lessons that people have learned before us, rather than having to stumble through the same mistakes that people have learned from and paid good money to get over.
Because I think, I mean, creating a website and a marketing campaign and all the rest of it is not that dissimilar to actually making spreadsheets. And what I often ask people is, tell me what you're trying to achieve. If you're wanting to add on to that later on, tell me what that is as well. Because if you want to make that, I'm going to create it in a certain way. If you want to create something different, I'm going to create it in a different way, possibly. Yeah. So it helps me to know what they're trying to achieve, so that I know how to actually build it, to make sure that it works for them, and to make sure that it's as future proof as possible.
Yeah.
The problem is, when that plan changes, all the work you've done, you can sometimes throw it all out and do it again because it's now been done the wrong way. Sometimes it's not a problem, but sometimes it can be. And that's what I learned from the whole website point of view. So actually, one relatively minor course adjustment can cost you a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, has a huge amount of ramifications if you don't have that clear why in mind. Why are you doing this? Even if you say, well, temporarily I want my solution to achieve X, but in the future I'd like it to go on to achieve Y. Exactly what you've said, you may approach it in a completely different way to the way you would have approached it if they'd only told you about X. So
that's exactly it. And but the problem is, I mean, as you probably know as well, when I start asking people those questions and they don't have the answers, they start to feel a little bit awkward and embarrassed, and then they tend to kind of pull away and not want to talk about it. And you kind of go, well, I'm not doing this to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm trying to get you the best results possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other tips for people looking to project manage whatever project it might be in their business?
I think the main one is to please recognize that it's your investment and it's your risk, and not giving it the attention that it deserves and leaving it to chance is a very risky strategy. And there's lots of people out there who have done, even if it's not exactly the same, it's going to be very similar. Learn from that and leverage that learning to save yourself money and maximize your chance of success.
And I think it also comes down to the value of the project, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, if you've got a low cost project, and you ask yourself, what are the ramifications if things go wrong, and it's relatively low cost, then I suppose the risk is quite low. If you've got a high cost project, and if the ramifications of if it goes wrong is high, that's when you really need to make sure that you've got the right planning in progress, because the last thing you want is to foreseen a problem and not do anything about it at the beginning, and now you sit with a massive issue.
But even if you think it's small, sometimes maybe you haven't seen the impacts on other areas of the business. There will be. So perhaps even getting some lightweight advice, even for a couple of hours, or talk me through what it is you're thinking of doing, and experience says, oh, maybe you should look out for this or look out for that. You don't have to suddenly employ someone for 6 months. You can just get some advice that will hopefully put you on the right track from day one.
Most definitely. Well, Nicole, thank you very much. I hope we haven't terrified people who are watching this now, and hopefully given them some kind of insight. And because I really don't think, I mean, for me, project management comes naturally. I don't think it needs to be a massive thing. It just needs to be taking the right steps. And often, as you say, getting someone in who's not necessarily, you know, someone, an independent person who's not necessarily emotionally invested in what you're doing, is often another good idea, because you would come in with clear instructions and a clear head and actually look at the project from a neutral point of view,
Yeah.
To achieve those results. So hopefully yes, people have got something out of this, and yeah, thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you very much for the invitation. I hope it has been useful to people watching.
Hope so. Thank you.
Right then.